This installment is brought to you by Sour Patch Kids, because there's no other candy in the room that I could possibly record. Alrighty, so now this is me laying back on the couch. For those of you who have not been introduced to the fact that I am changing scenarios every so often, it isn't just the mind-bending room of despair. No, instead, we moved from the table in the last installment. We were recording from over there, and I was like talking in this wonderful moonlight over here. And then I was over there writing, and we're going to do an installment over the table later, but now we are on the couch. Yes, we are getting professional here. Already, so since I had already talked about it for so long in the last installment, I figured I might as well get into Kingdom Hearts Birth by Sleep, which is actually a very, very good game. Obviously, I didn't even need to throw in the actually there because it's pretty obvious. I think the 7.5 out of 10 on GameSpot.com, can I just say, is a load of bull hooky. Okay, I'm going to say chocobo crap since, you can't really blame me for that. That isn't foul language, so that much. Although anybody who's listened to my podcast knows I swear like a sailor, but it is far better than a 7.5 out of 10. I just want to say that straight out. For a Kingdom Hearts portable game, it is absolutely the best that you could possibly get. Days and Chain of Memories have nothing compared to it. So if you even slightly enjoy Days or Chain of Memories, I think you're going to have an absolute blast with Birth by Sleep, which takes the combat from Kingdom Hearts 2, the flashiness, the smoothness of it, and mixes it up with some of the more strategic elements from Chain of Memories. The card system and that. There's something similar to this where you'll build command decks. Basically, you go into the basic combat and you'll press X, 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 as the typical hack and slash combat goes. But then you have an entire list of these different commands that you can use. There's fire, there's ice, there's water, all these wonderful things that you could possibly use. I was kind of disappointed by the fact that there was no nuke spell, as far as I know. I've heard that if you start mixing up spells together, you can start getting really crazy stuff. But there's a level up system that I would say is similar to Ratchet and Clank. For any of you who know, in Ratchet and Clank, basically you level up your guns. You get your guns, you've got your machine gun, you've got your rocket launcher and all of that. And the more you use them, the more they level up. And you're given extra incentive to do that since they become more and more powerful, obviously. It's a cheap RPG element. Basically, that's what is done with Kingdom Hearts Birth by Sleep with the spells and abilities. They actually have a use in this game as opposed to Kingdom Hearts 1 and 2, where the spells are pretty much, besides Cure and Arrow, most of the spells were pretty much pointless. In this particular game, you will find yourself slinging together spells more than in any other Kingdom Hearts game, except for maybe Chain of Memories, but I don't really count that. Okay, in any traditional combat Kingdom Hearts game, this is probably the most spellcasting that you're ever going to do. It's definitely different, but it's a welcome change of pace for somebody who's been playing these games for about 8 years now. Maybe it hasn't been that long since the first Kingdom Hearts, but I've been playing it avidly since the first game's initial release. So I'm pretty much familiar with all of the systems of play. So it is great to see something new and slightly more strategic added to it. With that being said, if you do want to just hack and slash, there's plenty of room to do that as well. You can basically level your character up to a point where you can just blow through everybody in the arena. Or not arena, but anybody within the whatever world that you're in, like I did. I ended up accidentally getting stuck in the Cinderella world at one point. I couldn't figure out how to get one of Cinderella's little pieces of her clothing, and so I ended up wandering around in circles, and I ended up fighting a lot of unversed in the process of doing that. And so my character, when I ended up going into the next few levels, was supremely overleveled. I think it's very easy to get overleveled in these kinds of games if you're into that sort of thing. Kingdom Hearts has never been really a level grindy affair, especially for an RPG. It's more of a action-adventure game. And you can level up, and you can sort of beat the system that way, but it isn't quite as rewarding as actually just going through the boss fights and playing them, as if it were just a normal platformer or hack and slash game. But, of course, me being the wimp that I am, I always level up. I level up, level up, level up. So, I can't say that, don't level up during this game, because that's stupid. It's an RPG. You're going to end up doing that anyways. The story is the only real disappointment that I've felt so far. Compared to Kingdom Hearts 2, it's definitely weak, and I know a lot of people talk about Kingdom Hearts 2 as being the weakest story-wise, which I think is a load of chocobo crap, but, I played the first and the second game back-to-back just recently, I think within the last year, and the first game, as much as I love it, has a very simplistic plot. It's very uninteresting, for the most part, is how I would describe it. Kingdom Hearts 2, while it certainly isn't perfect, and it isn't like one of the best story-based games of all time, like some people would tell you, it's at least, it grabs your attention, like right from the very beginning. I felt like everybody complains about the 3-hour intro at the beginning with Roxas and everything. But I thought all that was fairly interesting. I got invested in the characters. There's a lot more development than I was expecting. And I didn't get a lot of that in Birth by Sleep. There isn't a whole ton of character development. A lot of the things that are cool in the game are revelations to past games, or basically the future of Kingdom Hearts, since this is a prequel. A few questions are answered, which I was absolutely ecstatic about. Questions I didn't know were going to be answered. And it fits together very well. This game definitely is a key part of the Kingdom Hearts saga. It isn't just a tack on. They definitely integrated this into the entire storyline. But there's just something about... I've gone through 2 of the campaigns so far. I've beaten 2 of the campaigns. I have yet to beat Terra's campaign. I've beaten both Ven's and Aqua's, which is like the complete opposite order of what you're supposed to do. Everybody says you're supposed to do Terra first, but I decided to be a rebel and take on Aqua and Ven as my first playthroughs. When you get to the end of the stories, it doesn't have that same sort of heart-wrenching Kingdom Hearts feel that I got from the endings from both 1 and 2. But then again, I haven't gotten to the official ending yet, which is what you get when you complete all 3 games, and it opens up an extra file for you to go on to the final world. So I can't exactly say yet, but I will say that story-wise, this isn't as good as Days, which I personally thought had the most emotional of the Kingdom Hearts stories. It isn't as in-depth as Kingdom Hearts 2, but people who enjoyed the storyline from Kingdom Hearts 1 the most will most likely get a kick out of this, because it is definitely simpler as far as just the storyline is concerned than 2 and Days. It isn't quite as, I wouldn't say psychologically centered, but it definitely has less of the anime sort of vibe to it, less of the Final Fantasy Justo. And now I'm like sounding like a moron because I can't come up with any words. I mean, what the hell does Final Fantasy Justo mean? Can anybody out there explain to me? Final Fantasy Justo. Gusto. I think I was meaning to say gusto. But so far, I'm addicted to the game. I love it. By the time I drag myself away from Disgaea, I will hopefully beat it. And I'm planning to beat it many times again. If I were to give it a rating, I think for Kingdom Hearts fans, this is definitely a 4.5 out of 5. I think it's brilliant as far as like a PSP Kingdom Hearts game is concerned. I think for people who hadn't played the original Kingdom Hearts games, I'm not so sure. I think it's probably more around a 4 out of 5, which is still really solid, definitely worth checking out. And now that I think about it, a 4 out of 5 isn't all that much different from the 7.5 that GameSpot gave, but I hate people who review games that I like lower than my expectations expect, because I'm a fanboy like that. So, you know what, I forgive you, GameSpot, because you actually did write a pretty good review. Now I sound like a jerk. I just go after particular sites. Like, it reminds me of when IGN did the review of Kingdom Hearts 2, and I was just absolutely floored by the fact that I think they gave it like a 7.7 out of 10, and I couldn't possibly understand why they would give it that rating. And basically what they said was that it was too easy and it was too shallow. And I can't really argue with that, because it is easy and it is shallow, but for me, it's Kingdom Hearts, so I guess, I'm just going to have to grow out of my fanboy stage eventually. So definitely check it out if you're into that sort of thing, or if you have a PSP. And this is a very good incentive to get a system if you're a Kingdom Hearts fan, because the PSP gets a lot of crap that I feel it doesn't properly deserve. I love my PSP. I think it's adorable. I think it's so cute. I want to hug it sometimes. Okay, peace.